The richest person you know is probably someone you would never guess. It is not the loudest car in the lot or the biggest announcement in the room. This is the person who drives something sensible, lives in a house smaller than they could afford, and checks their bank balance without their stomach dropping. That calm is not luck. It is the entire point. Real wealth in 2026 does not announce itself. It gets quiet, gets comfortable, and from the outside it looks almost unbearably boring. Today you will see why that boredom is the tell. Wealth is invisible. That sounds like a line, but it is closer to a law of physics. The watch on someone's wrist, the badge on their car, the square footage of the house they post from, all of that is money that has already left the building. You are looking at spending, not wealth. Finance a $50,000 vehicle and you commit to something like $700 a month for years, while the thing you bought loses value the entire time. Now imagine someone who buys a reliable, unremarkable car and quietly invests that same $700 a month instead, over just 6 years. At the long-run stock market return, that boring choice grows to nearly $70,000. One person is driving a symbol. The other is building a foundation, and from the outside, the second person looks like they are doing worse. We were trained by advertising and social feeds to read money in objects, so we assume the flashiest life has the most. Very often the opposite is true. The loud spender is frequently the fragile one to missed paychecks from a crisis, holding everything together with minimum payments and hope. The quiet one, who looks like they might be broke, is often the one sleeping soundly. If you want proof instead of vibes, we have it. The largest study of millionaires ever conducted followed 10,000 of them, and it dismantled almost everything people assume about who gets rich. 79% received no inheritance at all. Not a small one, nothing. And only a tiny sliver ever received a windfall of $1 million or more from family. The trust fund story we tell ourselves is, for the vast majority, simply false. 1 in 3 of these millionaires never earned 6 figures in a single working year of their entire life. And they still crossed the $1 million mark. The careers that produced the most millionaires were not glamorous. Engineer, accountant, and teacher landed near the top of the list. Only about 15% of these millionaires ever held a senior leadership title. This was not a club of executives. It was a quiet army of ordinary earners doing unremarkable things for a very long time. They lived on less than they made, invested steadily, and avoided debt like it was contagious. More than 9 in 10 said they simply worked hard and stayed consistent. No perfect stock pick, no dramatic origin story. That is the part that makes it boring, and the boredom is exactly why it works. The engine underneath it is compounding. The most patient force in finance and spectacularly dull to watch in real time. Over the last century, the broad American stock market has returned around 10% a year on average, bouncing all over in any single year, but doing something almost unfair to your intuition across decades. Take 72 divided by your annual return, and you get the number of years it takes your money to double. At the market's long-run average, your money roughly doubles every 7 years. 1 becomes 2, then 4, then 8, then 16. The early doubles feel pointless. The later ones are enormous. This is why the exciting investor, jumping in and out chasing the hot thing, interrupts the doubling right when it starts to matter, while the boring investor buys a simple index fund and leaves it alone. Put $500 a month into a plain index fund earning that long-run average, and after 30 years you are sitting on more than $1 million just by feeding the machine and refusing to touch it. Start that same $500 a month at 25 instead of 35, and you do not end up with a little more. You end up with roughly 3 times as much. Time only rewards the people calm enough to wait. Here is the most revealing number in modern American finance. Vanguard tracks the retirement accounts of nearly 5 million workers And in their most recent report, the average 401k balance was about $168,000. That sounds encouraging until you look at the median, the person standing at the exact middle, which was only about $44,000. The -1 is nearly 4 times the median. A relatively small group of quiet, consistent savers has built such large balances that they drag the average far above what a typical person actually has, while most of the country sits down near that $44,000 median, which at a standard withdrawal rate produces only about $150 a month in retirement. So how do the quiet ones actually pull ahead? First, they automate. Real wealth is not built by heroic willpower every month. It is built by decisions you make once and then forget. The people who succeed set up an automatic transfer that moves money into investments the same day their paycheck lands, before they can feel it, spend it, or talk themselves out of it. A record share of large retirement plans now enroll new workers automatically, which means saving happens by default and stopping requires effort. When the boring choice is the automatic one, people build wealth almost by accident. Underneath the investing sits a second boring layer, the humble emergency fund. A good high-yield savings account pays around 4%, while the typical big bank account pays almost nothing. Move $10,000 from a sleepy account into a high-yield one and you go from earning a couple dollars a year to earning roughly $400. But the real job of that cash cushion is emotional. When your car dies or your job disappears, the person with 3 to 6 months of expenses saved handles it and moves on. The person without it panic sells, yanking investments out at the worst possible moment and undoing years of quiet progress. There is one more boring habit that shows up over and over in the wealthy: their old-fashioned relationship with debt. In that same study of 10,000 millionaires, about 3 out of 4 said they had never carried a credit card balance in their entire lives, and 94% said they simply live on less than they make. High-interest debt is compounding pointed in the wrong direction, and you cannot outrun interest running the other way, so they never let it start in the first place. The second pillar is one of the least glamorous purchases in the world: a home you can actually afford, slowly paid off. Recent federal data shows the median net worth of American homeowners sits near $400,000, while the median for renters is closer to $10,000. A gap of almost 40 to 1. A paid-off house quietly erases the single largest expense most families carry right around the time their working income begins to fade. The plain formula that built most everyday millionaires is almost insultingly simple. Invest steadily in a retirement account and buy a reasonable home and actually pay it off. No leverage, no flipping, no drama. Just 2 boring decisions repeated for a couple of decades. The approach that has quietly created more everyday millionaires than any hot tip is buying a low-cost fund that owns a small slice of the whole market, buying more of it on a schedule, and holding on. It has outperformed the large majority of professional stock pickers over almost any long stretch of time. Now hold that quiet machinery up against the loud version of money, the kind designed to be seen. Logos turned outward, endless upgrades. The need for everyone nearby to know the price of things. The people performing wealth the hardest are frequently the ones with the least of it underneath. Real security has nothing to prove, so it tends to fall silent. Here is a pattern that quietly wrecks more high earners than any recession ever has. Lifestyle creep. You get a raise, and within a month or 2 your spending rises to swallow it. You could double your income over a decade and be exactly as fragile at the end as you were at the start, just with fancier problems. The people who quietly get wealthy decide on purpose what a good life actually costs for them, and let their income climb past that line without letting their spending follow. When a raise comes, The difference goes straight into investing rather than an upgrade. What they are really buying is the most valuable thing. Money can purchase freedom, and freedom does not photograph well. Consider a hypothetical that plays out constantly in real life. Marla earns $200,000 a year and looks the part completely. The car, the watch, the vacations, the address. Everyone assumes she is wealthy, but her spending rose to match every raise she ever got. So she saves almost nothing. And if her income stopped, her entire life would collapse within about 2 months. Now picture Bernadette, a recently retired schoolteacher who never once cracked 6 figures. She drove modest cars, lived in the same small home for decades, and quietly invested a piece of every paycheck for 35 years. She is a millionaire. Marla looks rich and is fragile. Bernadette looks ordinary and is free. For the clearest living example of this philosophy, look at Warren Buffett, worth well over $100 billion, who still lives in the same house in Omaha he bought back in 1958 for $31,500. Now worth well over $1 million. He drives himself around, has talked about being perfectly happy with a breakfast that costs a few dollars, and for years used an old flip phone. His own line is that at a certain point, possessions start to possess you. In 2026, with the market hitting record highs and huge numbers of people pouring money into fast, exciting baits, he offered a warning that fits this whole video. It is hard to find real value when everyone around you would rather gamble, and there is far more money to be made cultivating gamblers than cultivating investors. The financial world is loud because loud is profitable. For the people selling it to you, the boring path has no marketing budget because nobody gets rich selling you patience. Enormous amounts of money have rushed toward the fastest, most thrilling baits available. Single-day options, prediction markets. Whatever coin happens to be spiking that week. All engineered to feel like opportunity because that loudness is how it recruits you. The boring investor watches the whole circus, shrugs, and keeps sending the same automatic transfer into the same simple fund month after month. 10 years from now, most of the gamblers will have a pile of stories and very little to show for them, while the person who was too bored to play will have quietly won. You are not behind because you missed secret. You are behind because the truth was too boring to trend. The loudest financial energy usually comes from the least secure people, and the genuinely wealthy tend to be almost suspiciously relaxed because they are not performing for anyone on a random Tuesday. The secure person is not doing anything remarkable at all. A surprise bill does not spike their heart rate, and their money is already handled, flowing in the background through transfers they set up long ago. That flat, almost dull sense of calm is the entire reward, and it cannot be faked because it rests on what you truly have rather than what you manage to appear to have. So let us be clear about what real wealth actually is underneath all the noise. Forget the number you show other people. What matters far more is the number of mornings you wake up without dread. Real wealth is the ability to absorb a surprise bill, a job loss, or a bad year without your life quietly falling apart. Here is the freeing part. If wealth is boring, then it is also learnable, repeatable, and available to regular people on regular incomes. Spend less than you earn. Invest the difference automatically. Keep a cash cushion so you never panic. Avoid expensive debt, and then do the single hardest thing, which is to wait while it compounds. The people who look rich are often just people spending their future to decorate their present. The people who are rich usually look like they are getting away with something ordinary. Choose to be the second kind. Tell me in the comments, have you ever chased the loud version of success and regretted it, or quietly chosen the boring path and watched it pay off? I read these, and the honesty in this community helps more people than you realize.